Now the recording's on. Welcome to everyone here in person today and to everyone who is visiting the service with the help of modern technology. The UU Fellowship of Lake Norman is an open and inclusive congregation. Our members walk diverse paths to find meaning and purpose, but we're united by our belief in the inherent worth and dignity of all, and in the responsibility to express our faith through acts of justice and compassion. My name is Sandy McFeely, and I've been a member of this congregation since 2013. Our speaker today is our minister, Reverend Pat Jobe. He's fresh from participating in the Barefoot Mile Walk to support the work of Joy International. That's a nonprofit that works to prevent child slavery and to rescue the many who become trapped in it. It's an evil in this world, a Horcrux in Harry Potter stories that Autumn is helping our children to learn about and work to get rid of during this month and maybe all of the autumn. I'll let Reverend Pat do the rest of the bragging.
Your order of service says we raised about $850. I think we're going to end up over 1,000. We're going to end up very close to 1,000. Yeah. And the overall effort raised about $19,000. So this is money that not only goes to support Joy International, but it also supports On Eagle's Wings, which is a local safe house for victims of trafficking. And it's in Concord, and the folks there are wonderful. They're doing great work to encourage women and children who have been caught in human trafficking. So we'll be hearing more about that as time goes by. Our opening words come from the guard at the palace of the Wizard of Oz, who turned out not to be a guard at all, but turned out to be the wizard himself. And what he said, what he told Dorothy and Scarecrow and Tin Man and Lion was, "You want to see the Great Oz? Nobody sees the Great Oz." Is it time for the story or is it time to light the chalice? My order of worship says it's time to light the chalice.
Is it? Okay.
It's what it says. Now,
Well,
I could be wrong.
Well, I'm going to go with your version of it.
Okay.
First try. Please join me in saying the chalice lighting words, which are in your order of service. We light this flaming chalice to illuminate the world we seek. In our search for truth, may we be just. In our search for justice, may we be loving. And in loving, may we find peace.
Okay. Those of you who want to hear a story for all ages, come down. And just know that the grown-ups are so excited that you're here. We're really excited that you're here. Yeah, come on up and sit down up here. And then you get to escape. From the grown-up part of the service.
If we get to escape, then I'll join.
Escape what?
If we get to escape, then I'm going to join them.
Well, go right ahead. Autumn's a pretty darn good teacher. You might learn something. Okay, the story today is the story of the Wizard of Oz. How many of you already know it? You sort of know it. You don't know it.
I know it.
You kind of do.
I heard it. I heard a lot of story in school.
Okay. All right. Well, now I have an assignment for you. When you get home, find whoever is in charge of the television set and say, "I want to watch the movie of the Wizard of Oz, and I want to see the 1939 version, not any other version." But here's what happened. Dorothy got caught up in a tornado. She was taken out of Kansas. She went to Oz. Her house landed on a wicked witch who had a sister who got mad at her because she killed her sister. She went looking for the wonderful Wizard of Oz because she believed he could get her home. And on the way there, she found a scarecrow who had a nose that looks a lot like mine. And he didn't have a brain. So he needed a brain. So did somebody say that might also? Do we have any kind of security here? I'm gonna need security. Hey, you may need to take some people out. So the scarecrow needed a brain, the Tin Man needed a heart, and the Cowardly Lion needed courage. So they all went to the wizard, and the wizard told them, "You already have all that inside yourself." He told the scarecrow, "You got plenty of sense." He told the Tin Man, "You already have a great heart." He told the Cowardly Lion, "You already are courageous. It's all already inside you." But the wizard could not get Dorothy home because the wizard was a con man. The wizard was a shameless liar. He didn't have any special powers. He wasn't a wizard. He was just somebody telling lies in a very high position in the community. We won't go into that either. But what happened was Dorothy woke up. She woke up from a dream. The whole thing was a dream. And when she realized that it was just a dream, she looked up at Aunt Em and she said, "There's no place like home." And that's the big lesson. Home is right here. Home is inside us. Home is where all the good stuff is, right in here. Okay, y'all can go to your classes.
Please remain comfortably seated while Teresa takes us into a time of contemplation and worship.
Teresa, we do love Mike Alec, but that was mighty fine. Mighty fine. Mighty fine. So please, we have a number of people in the congregation who are zealous to return this space to its original arrangement, to get the room looking back like the Quakers want it, and to get the hymn books put away. And today, please, if you are in that tribe and you like to clean up and get things back like they're supposed to be, take about a 15-minute break. Let's let people hang out together and say howdy and find out new things about each other. Talk to somebody you don't know. Imagine that. 15 minutes, please. I was so thrilled last week. I watched the service online, and I was so thrilled that Jane Pope quoted from my sermon of the week before, where she talked about the deepest imaginable connections. And that really is what we're all about. Those kids who just heard that story, they probably won't remember it in 15 minutes. But I hope those of you who are adult role models in their lives will ask them, what could that mean? That our hearts are our homes. What could it mean that all the good stuff is inside us? Because those are the deepest imaginable connections. It's when we get it in here. I've been in trainings where the trainer will say, point to yourself. And everybody points here. Nobody points here. This is where we live. This is who we are. So I loved Jane talking about that again last week, and obviously I'm talking about it again this week. This is the essence of the genius of Unitarian Universalism. We are not content with simple dogma, with easy answers, just taking things we don't understand on faith. That's not us. We don't do it that way. We are always willing to dig deeper, to test beliefs and ideas, and even knowledge until we find ourselves on solid ground. We are looking for solid ground in here. I'm so grateful to all of you, even visitors, for taking these steps with us. After all, we are all at one time first-time visitors. Think about that. Think about that as you reach out this afternoon after the service to somebody you don't know. Everybody at one time was a first-time visitor. So I talk with people about these sermons before I deliver them. And one of my friends pointed out to me, Eddie, thank you for saying what you did about 9/11. Today is 9/11. Today is 9/11. And we need to mention it. It's the anniversary of the attacks on the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and the plane that was down near Shanksville, Pennsylvania. It is difficult to say anything about that day that hasn't already been said. We know the grief, we know the horror. The facts are horrible, our memories are horrible, and the awful wars that followed in Afghanistan and Iraq are consequences of the misguided notion that if we just fight one more war, we can finally subdue the anger and hatred of people who were angry and hateful enough to fly airplanes into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon and that plane that went down in Shanksville. Pete Seeger asks us again, along with so many of us who sing that song, where have all the flowers gone? When will we ever learn? When will we ever learn? It is sad, it is horrible, and as we bear our grief together, maybe we can carry the load a little easier because we carry it together, in this room. This sermon hangs on two illustrations. One story is of a mystical experience which will strain your credibility. Pat Faulkner has already said to me this morning, I can't wait to see what you're going to do with this. It's going to strain your credibility. But the other is the Wizard of Oz. And I expect you will hear that illustration many times because I believe the book by L. Frank Baum and the 1939 movie are both classic looks into what I believe is ultimate reality. Now, let me emphatically acknowledge that the whole idea of any reality being ultimate may be offensive to UUs, but I'm willing to risk it. I'll risk it. Gabriel and I were at a party in Virginia when I became engaged in conversation with a retired airline pilot. And our host, a man in his 60s or 70s, joined us and told us a remarkable story, a story as remarkable as any I have ever heard. Many years before, he had attended an event along with about 20,000 other people in a Berlin sports stadium. They were all there to receive a hug for a woman known simply as Amma, which is Sanskrit for mother. She travels the world hugging people and began her mission as a young child. She has, according to Wikipedia, hugged about 3 million people in her ministry. Though she was chastised by her parents not to hug people, especially not strangers, she said, "I don't see if it is a man or a woman. I don't see anyone different from my own self. A continuous stream of love flows from me to all of creation. This is my inborn nature. The duty of a doctor is to treat patients. In the same way, my duty is to console those who are suffering." Our host had been in the Berlin sports stadium for a while, and as he sat waiting his turn to receive a hug from Amma, an Indian mystic, there was Indian music playing on the PA system. He received a visit from his dead wife. The woman to whom he had once been married stood in front of him, and the two of them experienced an exchange of unconditional love. He knew that he loved her. She knew that she loved him. And then she was gone. A few more minutes went by, and the music kept playing, and people kept following along in the line and getting hugged by Amma, and the music was playing, and the hugs were continuing. And suddenly, his dead daughter stood in front of him. And he had the same experience. He knew that he loved her unconditionally, and she knew, and he knew that she loved him unconditionally. It was perfect love. Then she went away. The music kept playing. The people kept walking along in the line. And then Adolf Hitler appeared to him. And it was the same experience. Unconditional love. Unconditional love between himself and Hitler. Please do not be convinced of the miraculous, mysterious, non-scientific way of looking at life simply because I am a fanatic for it. All of us who embrace the miraculous, mysterious, non-scientific way of looking at it, all of us are crackpots, liars, thieves, and charlatans. I once had an Indian guru get up in the Greenville Fellowship and say pretty much that. He said, and Arvind, forgive me for my attempt at an Indian accent, but he said, all teachers, ministers, prophets, and Indian gurus are crackpots, liars, thieves, and charlatans. And then he said, Reverend Jobe and I, not so much. But it's true. One reason I come into a pulpit on any occasion is to say, look what I found. Maybe it will be some help to you. But as soon as I climb on my soapbox, there is a whole history of crackpots standing in line behind me saying, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. That's what I love about being a UU minister. I know that our congregations are made up of people who know so many gurus and teachers and self-appointed messiahs and snake oil salesmen, and they are not to be believed. They apply the UU filter. They apply the UU filter to everything. God, life after death, miracles, or as I heard them called recently, mackerels, strange sightings of Hitler in Berlin, of all places. What does it mean? What could it mean? Let's have a conversation. And why did I even tell that story? Me, the self-inflated egotist who has spent so much of his life on a soapbox. I told it because I believe perfect, unconditional love, holy love, sacred love, love like a mountain stream is flowing all the time. Our lost and broken world is an illusion which stands in front of and over that stream, lying to us constantly that the great and powerful Wizard of Oz really can get Dorothy back to Kansas. No, it's not true. It's all a dream. Dorothy never even left home. We are all always at home right here, and one with that mountain stream of love, loving kindness, unconditional, embracing love. But we have to put up with a few wicked witches and flying monkeys along the way. And look how many dad-burned, dad-gum, blankety-blank, cussed, wicked witches and flying monkeys are afoot in the world today. There are so many travesties on that list. As we watch the West burn and Pakistan is now 1/3 underwater, we must feel a little bit of anxiety that sooner or later these earthquakes of disaster are going to find us or those we hold most dear. One of my daughters and her husband and 2 of my grandchildren live in Portland, Oregon, a city broiling in a heat wave and still quaking from riots over the past 2 years. Of course we are anxious. Of course we are looking around for leadership, institutions, processes that will somehow fix problems instead of bringing more problems. Wicked witches and flying monkeys are everywhere. And as it turns out, even the great and powerful Wizard of Oz is just a snake oil salesman behind a curtain of deception. How in the world do we move forward? Do we simply throw up our hands and accept there is little we can do that will ultimately make any difference? And were we to do that, would that stream of unconditional love that my friend found in that Berlin sports stadium, will that change? Of course it would not. The stream of unconditional love, if there is such a thing, would not be disturbed by our giving up the effort. On the other hand, do we keep our hands to the plow? That is the more likely outcome of anything I might say or do standing before you today. Yes, we will keep on keeping on. Some of us will donate our hard-earned cash to political campaigns of good people running against awful people in the hope that some of those awful people might get dispatched to the scrap heap of history. Others of us will get dogs off chains. We will feed the hungry at Feed NC. We'll write postcards to encourage other voters. And as we demonstrated yesterday at Wingate Park, we will walk a barefoot mile in hopes of rescuing children from slavery. We are a people of action. We are not quitters. And there is a great deal to be said for that. I know a UU down in Greenville who has a sign in her bathroom. I would stop eating chocolate, but I'm not a quitter. But just in case we stumble and find it hard to get back up, please know that the stream of unconditional love is not disturbed by any of our stumbling. Adolf Hitler is an icon of evil, even though both Stalin and Mao were responsible for the deaths of far more people. It is Hitler who lives large in our memories of just how awful the human race can be. The cry of never again has been lost to us in almost 80 years since the world learned of the Holocaust. Millions more have died in genocides around the world, and many hundreds of thousands are threatened today in the refugee camps of Bangladesh, Syria, Yemen, and beyond. The wicked witches and flying monkeys are real and wild and mean and nasty. If this whole thing really is a dream, some of us are breathless, absolutely breathless to wake up from it. But the experience of the man in the sports stadium in Berlin gives us a bizarre and abiding hope. Maybe it is all a dream. Maybe we are certain to wake up. And when we do, if I have danced even within reach of the truth this afternoon, when we wake up, we will say, "Oh, Aunt M, there's no place like home." Anybody want to say anything? We're trying to get a talk back going in these services, and we haven't done so good at. Jim, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask, the guy that was in the line and he saw two people and had unconditional love, and then he saw Hitler, and he had unconditional love for Hitler.
He had unconditional love for Hitler, and Hitler had unconditional love for him. He said it was the same experience.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, yeah.
I had to process that.
Sure, we all have to process. Yes. Tell me your name.
My name is Simi.
Come
Hey,
on,
Stanny.
come on up so you.
Yeah.
That's not in my-
So what is the UU filter?
Whoa.
That's good.
Simi, I would say the UU filter is that when we hear something that sounds so strange to us, and Pat Wall and I had this experience yesterday at the Barefoot Mile. There was a lot of very traditional Christian singing and praising God and everything. And the UU filter is, that's okay for those people. Obviously, it meant a lot to a lot of them. There was a lot of emotion going on and a lot of heartfelt feelings. But we as UUs have to say that's good for them. It's not necessarily good for us. And it's not necessarily good for a Hindu listening to it, or for a Muslim listening to it, or for a Buddhist listening to it, or an agnostic or an atheist. Our filter says, basically, you do your thing and I'll do mine. And as long as we don't hurt each other, we're okay. Does that make sense? Yeah, that is definitely the UU filter. Yeah, thank you for that question. That was great. Naomi.
This isn't a question, but it's interesting that you used the Somewhere Over the Rainbow in conjunction with this talk. I just finished reading, and I don't memorize a lot of stuff these days, that the song Somewhere Over the Rainbow was really written for the Jewish people trying to exit the Holocaust or whatever. And I wondered if that's how it got tied into this. I never heard that before.
Yeah, I read the same article. And what the guy said is both the lyricist and the musician were Jewish refugees, not necessarily from Hitler, maybe from the pogroms in Russia, but they were part of that Jewish leaving of oppression in Europe. And that Somewhere Over the Rainbow is evoking their yearning for something better, for freedom, for safety, for a place where the troubles would melt like lemon drops. Yeah.
That's actually in the history books. Read the history books.
Yeah.
Now, as soon as you read it out
Be
loud.
taken out soon.
Yeah. Yeah. For those of you watching at home, Molly just pointed out that that's in the history books. Yeah. That these two musicians were expat Jews from Europe who were saying, we really want there to be a place where troubles melt like lemon drops. Yeah. Yes, Arvin.
Isn't the UU filter to examine things in the light of scientific facts and see whether they make sense?
Well, Arvin, you and I are just becoming friends. So I want to be very careful in how I respond to that. What Arvin just said is that the UU filter is to use the scientific method to examine ideas, policies, whatever, in terms of facts. And being a mystic myself, I very rarely use scientific method. I'm I'm basically mentally ill. And, that's why it hurt my feelings so bad when these folks over here talked about my not having a brain. Like maybe I was the scarecrow in more ways than my nose. But there are a lot of things that I believe in that don't make sense, that would not stand up to the scientific method. But we definitely have a lot of UUs who do examine things through the scientific method and want things to make sense. But that story I just told about Hitler showing up to that guy to make a lick of sense. That's a uniquely mystical experience. He stood in the presence of an icon of evil and found unconditional love. Nah, that never happened. Maybe not. He was very credible when he was telling the story. But you see my problem with just saying the UU filter is science. It certainly is not. Not for me anyway, maybe for you. And you do your thing, I'll do mine. How about that? Okay, we've had talk back. Wonderful.
Thank you, Pat. And thank you, Teresa. And thanks to everybody who participated in the talk back. This is only our third or fourth time to do it, and the crowd gets louder every time. This fellowship is important to us all. The contributions we make today allow us to sustain and grow our congregation and to reach out to the community, both nearby and in the larger world. Your giving affirms our commitment to each other and to the community. With grateful hearts, we receive these gifts and this music May they both encourage us to live lives of integrity, compassion, and peace. Let's take a look at the announcements for just a second. The Heart of the Carolinas UU Animal Ministry is building for 4 dogs on September 17th. Sugar, Baby Girl, Woofers, and Coco. Okay. See Jim for more information, and volunteers are needed. No experience or previous experience is necessary. Or special skills are necessary. They'll help everybody get involved. Postcards. For those who have asked to do the postcards, I'm ready to hand them out to you after the service. See me. And whatever I said about how much was raised for Joy International, I was wrong. It was much more. Our closing song today is number 168, One More Step. Please stand as you're willing and able.
The sentiment behind that hymn was echoed by King Charles as he assumed the throne this past week. He said, the purpose of the Church of England is to encourage every religion. Imagine that. The King of England said the purpose of the Church of England is to encourage every religion. Whoa. Darn near Unitarian. Our closing words come from Judy Garland as she played Dorothy Gale of Kansas in the classic 1939 film. She awoke from her dream to discover that all she had suffered and worried over and fretted about was simply a dream. It's good special effects. It's good special effects, Teresa. That was the sound of the window going up in the movie. And as the window came up, the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Lion were smiling at her from her bedroom window in the faces of the farmhands who worked for Aunt Em and Uncle Henry. As she realized it had just been a bad dream, she uttered the words that many of us have repeated throughout our lives. There's no place like home.
As we close our service, please say with me the words for extinguishing the chalice in your order of service. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry on our hearts until